Hey everyone, in this video I'll teach you all the mechanics of the Lep Seclusa dungeon. The dungeon is located in Hughesbane. It has 3 regular bosses, each with its own hard mode, and 3 bosses which don't have hard modes, and which are supposed to be skippable. But one of them is bugged, so only 2 of them are skippable. This guide is also already on my website, so if you prefer written guides over YouTube videos, you can read it instead. The link will be in the description. First boss you can encounter is the skippable boss Lewin Frey. His first mechanic are sparks. Lewin's light attacks sometimes cleave in front of him, so make sure to keep him turned away from the group. Next is Conduit. Lewin teleports away and puts an AoE on a random player that deals damage to them and people around them. Don't stack with other group members when you have it. Next is Thunderthrow. If the tank is far away from Lewin, he will close the distance by teleporting onto the tank and dealing damage in an AoE, which can be blocked. Next is Overcharge. Lewin causes a blast around himself, which knocks back if not blocked, and then he stays in lightning form, which greatly reduces his damage taken. And lastly, we have Shocking Split. Lewin spawns 2 lightning clones that teleport around the arena, shooting out 4 AoEs on each teleport. These AoEs stun, and you can't break free from that stun. And here's a recording of the full fight. The next boss is Garvin the Tracker, which is a non-optional boss with a hard mode banner. His first mechanic is Whirlwind, which is a heavy attack with a 1.4 second windup. Starting in veteran difficulty, this heavy attack will also apply a healing absorb effect. Next up we have Noxious Boulder. Garvin will aim for a short moment and then launch a Noxious Boulder in the tank's direction. The boulder stuns everyone it travels through unless they're blocking, and explodes upon touching terrain, creating an AoE on the ground. Noxious Boulders will also one-shot unenraged monstrous Dune Reapers if it touches them. So aim Noxious Boulder at monstrous Dune Reapers, or simply aim it away from the group if no Dune Reapers are up. Now moving on to the Dune Reapers I just talked about. At 50% HP, a monstrous Dune Reaper spawns on the side of the arena. It's not aggroed at the beginning and will simply patrol the area. It will enrage as soon as you enter combat with it. As long as they're not in combat, and thus not enraged, you can one-shot them by making Garvin hit them with the Noxious Boulder. Enraged Dune Reaper still takes some damage from boulders, so it's worth to continue directing them at them. While you're supposed to kill them with the Noxious Boulder, it's still possible to survive them if you accidentally pull them. They have a Kono attack, a heavy attack which puts a massive bleed, and they can burrow on the ground and emerge at your position. At 30% HP, Garvin will let out a scream, which fears everyone around him, and pulls and enrages all remaining monstrous Dune Reapers. In veteran difficulty, there's going to be 2 Dune Reapers instead of 1, and they'll spawn at 70 and 40% HP. In hard mode difficulty, there's going to be 3 Dune Reapers, spawning at 80, 50 and 40% HP. You might have to slow down DPS after 40% HP, so you can boulder the 40% Dune Reaper before Garvin screams at 30%. Next we have Vanishing Powder. Garvin teleports away and sets up traps, which immobilize you if you step over them. Don't interrupt him. The traps he's placing while channeling are extremely irrelevant, so let him waste time on it. Next we have Piercing Dervish. Garvin deals damage, applies a dot, and a healing absorb effect towards the tank and in the opposite direction. If the tank moves to the side, trying to avoid it, Garvin will change the direction of this ability, always trying to shoot it at the tank. DPSs and healers should stand to the sides of Garvin to avoid the damage. The tank should try to not turn Garvin erratically, to make it easier for other group members to avoid it. Next we have Venom Eruption. After a 3-second delay, Garvin starts dealing massive damage to players in his line of sight, over 6 seconds. Hide behind rocks to break the line of sight. Next we have Summon Adds. At certain HP thresholds, Garvin summons 3 types of adds. Deserter Storm Mage, summon at 75%. They can channel to electrify water in the area, channel an AoE attack on one of the players, and summon lightning AoEs that keep spawning on players' locations. There's a Deserter Flame Archer, summon at 50%. They can channel a conal attack, channel a rapid fire attack, and spawn volley AoEs that keep spawning on players' locations. And there is a Deserter Infuser, summoned at 25% HP. They can channel to heal and enrage all the adds, including Garvin, and channel a shield on other adds. In Veteran difficulty, you'll have to face 2 of each add type, with Storm Mages spawning at 95% and 50%, Deserter Flame Archers spawning at 80 and 35%, and Deserter Infusers spawning at 65 and 20%. In Harmon difficulty, there's going to be 3 of each add, with Deserter Storm Mages spawning at 95, 65 and 35% HP, Deserter Flame Archers spawning at 85, 55 and 30%, and Deserter Infusers spawning at 75, 45 and 25%. Start focusing adds instead of Garvin if you're getting overwhelmed, and make sure to interrupt the Infusers. Next up we have Wild Spores. Garvin puts a hard-hitting 8-second dot on everyone, which takes 17 times over the duration. It hits really hard in higher difficulties. And lastly we have Ricochet, which is a mechanic that starts appearing only in Veteran difficulty. Garvin puts Ricochet on 2 players for 10 seconds. If the 2 players are within line of sight of each other while this effect ends, they will take damage equal to 75% of their max HP as Oblivion damage. Simply break the line of sight with the other group member. In hard mode difficulty, Ricochet lasts 6 seconds instead of 10, and failing Ricochet will simply kill you instead of dealing damage. And here's a recording of the full fight. Next one is the skippable boss Siege Master Malthoras, and he doesn't have a hard mode banner. His fight begins with a siege phase, where you have to fetch ballista parts to repair ballistas, and destroy Malthoras' 4 siege weapons. Now moving on to regular mechanics, first we have Call Scouts. At 50% HP, Malthoras summons a wave of Ats. The Ats don't have any special mechanics. Next up we have Volley. Malthoras targets a player and spawns volley AoEs at their location. Next is Directive Volley. Malthoras targets a player and shoots a volley of arrows in their direction. Next we have Quake Shot. Malthoras shoots out 3 projectiles in the tank's direction, which stagger you if you're not blocking. They also bounce off of walls. Next we have Shattering Stomp. Malthoras stomps and staggers everyone around him. Next, True Shot. Malthoras challenges for a long time and then shoots a heavy hitting arrow at one of the players. It can't be interrupted. Next is Vanishing Powder. Malthoras teleports away and you have to chase after him. And lastly we have Firebomb. Malthoras throws firebombs at players, spawning AoEs at their locations. And here's a recording of the full fight. Next boss is Noriwen, which is a non-optional boss with a hard mode banner. Her first mechanic is Brand, heavy attack with a 1.8 second wind up, which enrages Noriwen if you dodge roll it. Next is Charge Away. Noriwen periodically charges away and you have to follow her. Next is Chain Pull. If the tank is standing away from her melee range, she will simply chain them in, applying a massive purgeable dot. So you have to either keep up with Noriwen or purge or outheal the dot. Next is Blast Powder. Noriwen throws fire AoEs at a random non-tank player. Next we have Wing Gust. Alkunar swaps his wings, creating 3 lightning AoEs that travel through the arena. Touching these applies a dot. Starting in hard mode, this dot deals damage on an AoE around you. Next we have Alkunar. At 70% HP, Noriwen charges to Alkunar and stays there until 50% HP. Alkunar will peck and swap at players, staggering them if not blocked. She does the same thing at 20%. And stays there until the end of the fight. Simply block Alkunar's attacks. Next up we have Griffon Bombers. Griffon Bombers dive through the area, staggering you if they hit you, unless you're blocking. Starting from 50% HP, some of them will drop fiery bombs instead of diving. And lastly we have Flame Griffons. At 50% HP, Noriwen spawns 2 Flame Griffons and leaves the arena. She comes back when both of them are dead, or after 80 seconds. At 40% HP, Noriwen spawns 2 Flame Griffons again, and you have to fight them at the same time as Noriwen. Flame Griffons have a conal attack, a charge which shoots out fire AoEs, and they can shoot a massive fiery cyclone in the tank's direction, which can be deadly to DPS and healers. And here's a recording of the full fight. Next boss is Flamedancer Ajim-Rei, who, just like Lewin, Frey and Siege Master Malthoras, doesn't have a hard mode banner, but unlike those two, it cannot be skipped. Her first mechanic is Incinerating Prance, heavy attack with a 1.7 second windup. Starting in veteran difficulty, it will also apply a healing absorb effect. Next we have Blazing Shulk. Ajim-Rei starts the fight with one Shulk. She has a special move which summons one Shulk, but she also summons one Shulk whenever casting Firestorm Waltz and Heatwave. Shulks leave Burning Ground behind. Standing inside Burning Ground puts a dot on you that deals damage on AoE. In veteran difficulty, the special move which summons one shock summons two shocks instead. Next we have Firestorm Waltz. Ajim-Rei spawns a fiery clone that channels and shoots fireballs at random players until interrupted. It also simultaneously spawns a Shulk. Next we have Imminent Eruption. Ajim-Rei teleports away and channels an ability. If not interrupted, she deals big damage to every player in an AoE after a short delay. Next is Sweeping Firestarter. Ajim-Rei targets a random player and shoots 3 fiery lines their way, which apply a dot that deals damage on AoE around you. And lastly we have Heatwave. Ajim-Rei spawns an untargetable clone that deals damage in a cone towards a random player, also simultaneously spawns a Shulk. And here's a recording of the full fight. The next and final boss is Orpheon the Tactician, which is a non-optional boss with a hard mode banner. His first mechanic is Reality Fracture, a heavy attack with a 2.4 second windup that cannot be dodge rolled. It also deals damage in a circle around the tank, so DPSs and healers should stay away from the tank. Next up we have Quick Strike. Orpheon's light attacks live in a cone in front of him. Starting in veteran difficulty, these light attacks drain stamina and magicka, equal to 3% of the target's max stamina and max magicka. In the hard mode difficulty, this scaling goes up to 5% of the target's max stamina and max magicka. Next up we have Arcane Playmelt. Area is restricted by Arcane Playmelt, which deals ramping up damage to players standing inside of it. If Orpheon stands inside of Playmelt, it renders him untargetable and allows him to cast Forbidden Knowledge. At certain HP thresholds, the accessible area starts moving to one of the sides. When it reaches the side, Orpheon teleports away and begins the add phase. At 80% HP, the area moves from center to right. At 50% HP, the area moves from right to left. At 30% HP, the area moves from left to right. And past 20% HP, the area will keep moving between the sides until the end of the fight. In veteran difficulty, the accessible area is smaller, and in hard mode, it's even smaller than in veteran. Now as for the add phase, after the playmelt finishes moving at 80%, 50% and 30% HP, Orpheon teleports away and summons one big and 3 small adds. The big add is either Arcane Hulk or Arcane Rave. They both have heavy attacks and AoE that should be avoided by DPSs and healers, but can be simply blocked by tanks. The small adds don't have any important mechanics, but they should be chained in by the tank. Next up we have Forbidden Knowledge. Orpheon launches 11 rune blades at each group member. A well-timed dodge roll allows you to evade majority of them. They cannot be blocked. Orpheon can only cast this while standing inside Playmelt, which is why the tank should make sure he stays out of it, while Playmelt is moving. Next we have Abyssal Reach. Tentacle AoE spawn randomly, and deal damage and knock players back. Next is Abyssal Conjuration. Orpheon summons tentacles at 2 players' locations. These perform AoE attacks which deal damage and knock players back. Next we have Alkunar. During add phases, and during the 20 to 0% HP phase, Alkunar will peck and swipe at players, staggering them if not blocked. Simply block his attacks. And lastly, we have Wing Gust. Alkunar swipes his wings, creating 3 lightning AoEs that travel through the arena. Touching these applies a dot, and starting in hard mode, this dot deals damage in an AoE around you. And here's a recording of the full fight. And that's it for this video. If you have any more questions, you can comment down below or join our Discord server Wildheart. As always, feedback will be appreciated. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel and check out my Twitch. Thanks for watching and see you next time.